Dear students, we can continue with our lecture from morning, and just now we have a special opportunity to invite Cristina Florio as an associated professor of accounting from University of Verona. From Italy, and the lecture will be on topic the publish or perish game, the author review interaction. It means just now it's opportunity to Cristina Florio to present a problem how to publish.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody. First of all, let me introduce myself together with, the topic we will discuss today. So I'm Associated Professor of Accounting at the University of Verona. I work in the academia since 2005. So I will share today my experience with you on this issue of the publish or perish game, and go a little bit more in depth in how the author-reviewer interaction shall be managed. Well, I am not a researcher in this area. But what happened to me is something like that. When I entered the academia in Italy, professors were used to publish their own books and articles. Most of them were for practitioners, for public accountants, for auditors. They contained like recommendations on how to manage with accounting and auditing standards, with new regulations and so on. But very, very quickly, the system changed. And so PhD students and young colleagues, so assistant professors, lecturers, were pushed towards what we have called, probably it's the same story in other European countries, and so maybe you already know this story, but people were pushed towards internationalization of research. What does it mean? If you want to stay in the academia and make career, you need to win the publish or perish game. So you need to publish in order to make a career, make some progress. And this publish or perish game means that you do not write articles on the topics you choose, and that's it. It means that you need to write for international journals, which provides for a review process. So your article will be published only when other subjects confirm that the issue you're dealing with is relevant, that the methods you're using are correct, that results you achieve are interesting for the international community in a certain area. So when this process began, I was really young, so it was like 14 years ago, and pretty new to the entire system. And the system changed so quickly that nobody could help at my university. So I had to learn everything about this process by myself. So now that I have some experience as, an author of published papers, as a reviewer, and also right now a few experience as an editor, I wanted to say, well, why don't I share my experience to other people, to young scholars? Because if someone at the time had shared his or her experience with me, would have been such a good thing. I would have saved time. I would have, avoided probably some of the bad news I received during my research activities. So that is why I selected this topic. And that is why I wanted to share with you some thoughts about the rationale behind the review process and the relevance of providing an extensive, thoughtful response to reviewers' comments, share some guidelines to you on how to respond to such comments, and share the do's and don'ts in general terms, so as that the chance of having a paper accepted in a good journal is maximized. Here I have reported, a vignette. What's the problem before internationalization of research? Just publish. Then it became publish or perish. No publication, no seat in good universities. Then the issue became publish in high impact journals or perish. And so we started thinking, okay, then if I publish 2-3 papers in an A journal, now a 4-star journal, then I will stay in the university. But finally, the issue is publish frequently in high impact journals, and maybe you won't perish. So the situation and the challenges are becoming harder and harder, because we have pressures in timing, not only in journal selection, and a number, of variables. So today, in this hour that we share together, I will try to say something hopefully useful for all of you. If there are also some colleagues, experts in this area, so in publications, okay, maybe you will simply have fun when I will share my experience, or you will find yourself in some of the situations. For PhD students, I really hope this will be useful. So, first aspect, to some extent, reviewers always disappoint authors. However, even if I am new to the process, or I was new to the process, we need to know that peer review has been a formal part of scientific communication since the first scientific journals appeared more than 300 years ago. So it's something new for at least some of us, but it's something really old and well known for other people, especially in the United States, which in accounting, in management, are, of course, the mainstream. So they say where research is going. And so we need to, to some extent, adapt to the standards and make those standards ours. Because we, as Europeans, we have something more sometimes compared to US colleagues. Because we rely on intuition. We have ideas. Indeed, if you think about that, really innovative, small, medium-sized companies are European. We are populations with good ideas. And what does it mean? That this means that basically we are not so comfortable in adapting with other countries' standards, but at the same time, when we accept the game, we will play it correctly and we will win it. But first, we need some, foundations in our work. So what makes a journal, a scientific journal, is exactly the review process. So reviewers are not optional. They are essential to the scholarly publishing process. And we need to consider that normally reviewers are people, colleagues, experts in an area. And because of their expertise, they provide suggestions aimed at improving our job. We need to remember what? We need to remember that peer review is a voluntary activity made for free. So reviewers are spending their time helping us as authors and, of course, helping the journal editor in the choice. Of course, not all reviewers care the same way of the hard job assigned to them. But we are all humans, so our time is limited, so our interest sometimes in some papers is limited as well. Our concentration, our focus is different day by day because there are really days or weeks in which we are overloaded and so we can't pay enough attention. But as authors, we need to assume reviewers are working for us to have a very good piece of research published, a convincing piece of research published. And this is the next stage in research evaluation from universities. The next stage is valuing our performance according to the number of citations we receive from other papers. Thus, if our paper is a good one, then we are going to receive citations and our performance will be better and better assessed in the future for career purposes, for receiving funds from the university, and so on. So I really would like to start the journey with these few points in mind. Really, reviewers try to help us, even when they make us in trouble because they ask something that we believe is impossible to achieve. So just to, frame our mindset today. The publication game, how does it work? I mean, how does it work after we have a piece of paper written? So we submit our manuscript to the journal. A journal we have selected purposely. Why? Because it is in our field of research, because it has published in the last few years some articles which are important for our research. Maybe they are exactly the milestones we cite in our literature review. So we submit the manuscript, and the manuscript first is seen, I can't say is read totally by the editor, but for sure the editor looks at our abstract, looks at our research idea to understand what? First, if the topic fits with the journal's scope. Second, to assess if the paper can provide a contribution to the literature. So the points are, is the paper interesting for the journal, and does it have a chance to be considered relevant by the reviewers? So, based on these couple of questions, the editor will make a first decision. Desk rejection. So, there is something in the two main points I've just told you not working well. So, the paper is unsuitable for the journal. Our journey with this journal stops here. But the editor can decide to send our paper to reviewers. And so, at least two colleagues will read carefully our paper and come up with their decision. Again, the decision can be a rejection. We will perceive rejection as a failure, of course, but it's something, ordinary in the process, especially when the paper is, let's say, a new one. It's not mature. One thing to avoid rejection is to workshop the paper. So present the papers in seminars at your own university. Present the paper during conferences in the area, maybe the conference of the journal, which is your target, and so on. However, compared to a desk rejection, a rejection after the first round review provides us with something more, because we will receive the critics by the reviewers. We will receive comments, suggestions, so we can have an idea of what is wrong with our paper and an idea of how to improve the paper. Of course, there is the other outcome, the expected outcome, which could be revise and resubmit. So reviewers believe the paper has some merits, thus they give you the chance to go on with the process, to revise the paper according to their comments and suggestions. And then there could be a second, a third. I have experience of 5 rounds review process, so it takes time, but then hopefully the paper will be accepted. So, sorry, this is of course the part of our scheme we are interested into, with the goals to achieve. So first, the paper is well accepted by the editor. Thus, the editor sends the paper to reviewers. Reviewers provides lots of comments, critiques, suggestions, but we go on along the procedure till we achieve the acceptance level. And we can say cheers and really, really be satisfied by our job. So let's start with contents, with the hard part of the job. The paper is assigned to reviewers. Well, as I told you today, we consider the perspective of the authors. So today we are all authors. But if we want to be successful in the process, we need to know what reviewers are asked to do. We need to know this at the very beginning in order to avoid the shortcomings in our job. So, the peer reviewer is responsible for critically reading and evaluating a manuscript which falls within the specific field of study. In the slide, I have written critically, not because I wanted to write something more, but because the purpose is not reading, but it is critically reading. So the mission of the reviewer is to state which are the pros, which are the good things of the paper, and which are the bad things. So reviewers need to consider both aspects, the strengths and the weaknesses of the article. So we need to expect the reviewers will say the article has this and this merit, but the article has also this and this weaknesses. So we know we need to leverage merits, but we need also to assess weaknesses. And the reviewer has this second specific task to provide respectful, constructive, and honest feedback. Doing what specifically? Suggesting ways to improve the strength and quality of the work. So remember, reviewers shall not say, this is wrong, I don't like this, this could have been done differently, but they need to tell us how we can improve the job. If they don't do that, there is an issue. authors can discuss such an issue with the editor. It happened to me very recently, a couple of months ago, to receive a review. Actually, it was a third round review, and the reviewer replied to a number of questions the journal posed by writing not sufficiently, not sufficiently, not sufficiently. So, originality not sufficient. Structure of the paper not sufficient. Results not sufficient. But he or she didn't tell anything more. I said, no, look, it's 1 year we are working at this paper. During the previous round, we made lots of assessments. Now you can't treat us this way without any suggestion. So I contacted the editor and asked, do you have any other detail? Because basically, I don't know how I can convince this reviewer. And I went to discover that the reviewer didn't write anything to others, but he or she wrote like 1-page comments only for the editor. Once the editor shared these comments with me, of course, I was able to fix a number of aspects. But before that point, I couldn't do basically anything. Then changing my mind again on some aspects of the paper, but I didn't know really how to start the revision of the paper. So when there is something objectively wrong, you can say this to the editor. Editors are there to support both authors and reviewers, but they need to be asked for help because, of course, again, they are colleagues who teach, who make their own research, who have institutional commitments, and so on. So, reviewers prepare the review report. And what is interesting to know is that several journals provide for guidelines for the review report. So it is not free, but it is guided. And so I wanted to share with you a couple of possible schemes for review. First question, originality. Does the paper contain new and significant information adequate to justify publication? We all need to say something new. What does it mean? We cannot simply replicate an existing study saying, but we are testing this relationship, this association in Italy or in Czech Republic or in Slovakia or in France or in Germany. This is not enough for publication. This can be enough for publication only if you are able to underline why in that specific context you believe a relationship already tested in literature will not work. So there is a relationship working in the United States for big corporations. But in Italy, for example, we have listed companies in the hands of a family. This is our reality. So probably market reaction to the behavior of such companies is pretty different from the one in the United States. So once I fix this and I say, in Italy, that relationship is not working, then I need to reflect this idea throughout the paper. So in the regression model, in the variable definition, in the discussion of results. This is the only way to make a study which looks like a replication as providing some new knowledge to scholars outside our own country. Then, second point, relationship to literature. You need to demonstrate in the paper that you have an adequate understanding on the relevant literature in the field. You need to cite appropriate sources. Ignoring significant work is matter of rejection. I, as a reviewer in this case, I suggested rejection of a paper because it totally ignored two papers published. One, if I remember, in Journal of Accounting Research, and the other one in the Accounting Review, which in my field are the top journals. So you can't write about a topic without citing the best journals in the area, the best papers in the areas, papers which have 1,000 citations. Reviewers care about this aspect. Let's see a third question. Methodology. This is a big chapter, methodology, research, design. So, are your arguments convincing? Is there a theory you are using? Which are the main concepts you rely on? Is the sample you have selected for case studies or for quantitative research appropriate to study that specific topic, that specific issue? Is the model you created the right one? These are all aspects crucial for reviewers. And then the results. Are results presented clearly? Are they analyzed, discussed properly? Is there consistency throughout your research purpose, the research question, the research hypothesis, the results, and your conclusions? And then, of course, besides originality, there's the other aspects, which are implications. So does the paper contribute to the knowledge in a certain field? Does it have research implications? So after your paper has been published, which aspects the future papers cannot ignore? You must state this clearly. And on the other side, especially given that we are in very practical areas, the one of accounting, the one of management or finance, are there practical implications. So which suggestions do come from our paper to regulators, to managers, to chief executive officers, to chief financial officers, to auditors? So how can we contribute to their activity? What can we say to the financial markets, to investors, to stakeholders? Last but not least, especially for probably most of us, is the quality of communication. Of course, quality means the quality of communication means the manuscript reads well. And this is an issue of how we structure the paper, but it's something also about, you know, the clarity of expression, sentence structure, jargon use. And so, given that we are not native English speakers, our papers have always a sort of problem with communication. So basically, if we target good journals, we need to think about and help. There are professional editing services, so people that do this for work. So they check English in papers in different areas. I know it's something expensive, but there are online services with which we can save some money. Okay, but if we really target a good journal, we need to be sure that readers understand our English. Because if the reviewer is not able to understand what we say, it's our fault and it's our problem. It's not his or her problem. He will just say, I cannot understand. But we are the authors, so we need to be sure that we have done everything we can to write well. Then, you know, there is something also funny that sometimes happen in this regard. So I'll tell you something. I have written no, sorry, it was the wrong start. I have worked on a research paper with two colleagues in the United States. So I spent summertime with them in Knoxville, Tennessee, working on this research. And the research was on the auditing area and based on a sample of Italian companies. But I did not write any word in the paper because I was, you know, collecting data, I was performing the regression analysis and blah, blah, blah. And they were writing exactly because they, of course, are native English speakers. And do you know what happened? It happened that during the first round review of the paper, someone wrote the paper needs to improve English. And this was basically, you know, given that the paper is based on Italy, someone from Italy has written the paper, but it was not true. So we really had fun. I said, Stacy especially, she was written the paper. I said, Stacy, you don't know English. I'm sorry for you, but you didn't study English enough. So we had so much fun. Of course, she was really disappointed, but then we stated, well, we are sorry if the reviewer doesn't like our style, but the paper has been written by native English speakers. And so we solved the issue and nobody else has said something on this. But, you know, we need to admit English is not our first language. So even though we get used to that, we can make each other understand. But when we want to write for good journals, we need to admit help is needed. Second scheme for peer review. You see, something changes here compared to the previous scheme, because while the previous scheme looked at the paper's qualities, this scheme looks at the paper's sections. So the questions are, does the title clearly describe the article? Does the abstract reflect the content of the article? Does the introduction describe what the author hoped to achieve accurately? And then, does the mirror do that? Does the results do that? Does the conclusion do that? So it's another way, of course, of framing the review, looking at the different sections and their clarity and completeness and appropriateness. But then if we basically consider the key aspects are very similar. So we need to state clearly the purpose. We need to think about all the research design issues, so the data, the design, is the design suitable for answering the question posed? Are we providing enough information to replicate the research, so to let others replicate the research? Was the sampling appropriate? Or if we go, for example, on qualitative research, interviews, focus groups, case studies, have the equipment and materials been adequately described? Does the article make it clear what type of data was recorded? For example, if we make interviews, we need to say how many people were interviewed, in which positions, which is their age, the sex, the number of years they are working for the institution, their previous experience. So we need to provide a description of people, because different people interviewed probably means different results of our research. So reviewers and readers need to know. Another question here on the conclusion. Does the conclusion explain how the research has moved the bunch of scientific knowledge forward? This is something related with originality and contribution. So, as authors, when we are aware of these points, subjects to evaluations, we have an advantage, because we can use these schemes like, sort of checklist for ourselves. we can also ask a friend, a colleague of our department, someone we work with, but who's not involved in this piece of research, to read the paper and tell us something about the points we are not comfortable with. These are all tools in our hands. Believe me, in 2006, 2007, we didn't have the schemes available. So when I submitted the first papers, really, I had no ideas of what could have been assessed. I had no idea of how originality was intended by the scientific community in the United States or in Australia or in the UK even. Now that we can know, we can use these tools appropriately. So the paper has been reviewed 2, 3, sometimes reviewers, colleagues, read the paper, provide us with suggestions. They come up with this decision: authors, please revise and resubmit the paper. This is a piece of good news for us. Even though we know that the degree of revisions needed can be different, because if we are lucky, we receive minor revisions. But in most cases, at least after the first round, we receive major revisions. What does it mean? The paper has merits, but you need to work hard to strengthen its contribution, to improve methodology, to convince me that it was studying this issue, and so on. So, editor and the reviewers list specific items that need to be addressed before the paper could be accepted, could be considered for publication. And so, what does it happen when we receive this email with the object, decision on manuscript number, blah, blah, blah? First, of course, we have a sort of the heart starts beating so fast. Then we read, then we scroll down the email or open the attachment, start reading what the reviewers have written to us. And what does it happen? We will be really, really disappointed. There will be almost no one word we accept. We really get mad at the beginning. You know, I read some scientific papers on the issue, and they say, look, at the printer station or during coffee breaks within universities, people deal with this topic, reviewers, and reviews just received. So it seems that the first issue we have in front of the coffee machine or at the printer station is an issue with reviewers and reviews. But we need to breathe deeply. We can go outside and take a walk. Unfortunately, nowadays with the mask, but okay, let's try. do something else, and after cooling off, we need to reread everything. Probably we will still be disappointed, but after 2-3 days, 1 week, when we start talking with our colleagues, blah, 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 we will see that there is something interesting, for sure challenging, stated by the reviewers. And so we start our revision process. To face the revision process, it is taken for granted we need a plan. So, first of all, we need to prioritize dealing with issues which are key for publication. And which are such issues? Normally, those related with the contribution of the paper to the literature, the novelty of the paper, sometimes something related with a methodology, and so on. But we need to consider quality of communication. If it's about English, okay, we know we have an issue, but it's not what makes the paper be accepted. We know we can refer after the revision to an editorial assistant. But we need to fix what? To fix relevant points and admit and fix our mistake. For sure, if the reviewers state that this is wrong, this is unclear, and so on, we made a sort of mistake. It can be a substantial mistake because we were wrong in a phase of our research, or it can be a formal mistake in that we did not communicate appropriately what we have done. It is crucial to address the comments diligently. So consider all the comments and think about all of them and reply to all of them. Something really, really critical is this point. Sometimes one reviewer suggests you shall go in one direction, and the other one suggests that you shall go in a very different direction. So two let's say opposite comments from the reviewers. For sure, you cannot satisfy both of them. So we need to understand which is most convenient for us, which is also most convincing for them. If we can find a point of intersection between the two reviewers. But of course, in some cases, if we follow one direction, we will not satisfy one of the reviewers. So in this case, we need to say this. We need to say this in a clear way. I scroll down some of the slides, okay? Here. I wanted to report an example of how I responded to a reviewer in such a situation, conflicting position between reviewers. And I said, in reading the paper, please consider we have brought extensive revisions according to your comments and suggestions, as well as comments and suggestions made by the other reviewer, who mainly focused on different aspects. And in detail, I listed which amendments were brought to the paper because of the other reviewer's suggestion. And here again, if we have knowledge of the journal to which we have submitted the paper, it is much better. Why? Because some journals have a really transparent process. So the same email they send to the authors is received also by reviewers. So reviewer number 1 can see what reviewer number 2 has suggested to the authors. So in this case, as authors, we don't need to justify so much why we didn't follow one way, but we followed the other way. The reviewer already knows that there are two conflicting positions. But in other situations, the review process is totally blind. So reviewer number 1 doesn't know what reviewer number 2 has suggested to the authors. And thus, it's an author's responsibility to have the two aware of what was going on. Finally, an important aspect is that we need to respect the deadline for resubmission of the paper. First, because once the deadline has gone, we cannot upload the paper on the platform. So in online systems, we basically are automatically out of the game. And this is really bad thing. Of course, if we are really in troubles in meeting the deadline, we can ask for a short extension. But when we justify the request, we need to pay attention. So we need to really relate our need to something specific of the paper and the revision procedure. So we cannot write the editor and say, look, I'm teaching this semester. I am engaged in another research project or something like that. Because everybody in academia needs to teach, to make research, to make review, to make revisions, and so on. So if you need to extend your sample, hand collect data, then it's one pair of shoes. You can state this. We need more time because data and collection takes along. We need to download the documents. We need to do this. We need to do this, to do that. In my experience, editors normally try to meet the author's request, but they give 1-2 weeks more. So asking an extension doesn't mean to postpone the job for a couple of months. This is not the idea. If it happens, believe me, you're very lucky. So we deal with the revision of the paper. Of course, it's not just a matter of writing, but most of times it's a matter of rethinking about some aspects of the research. And once we have completed the revision, we need to prepare 3 documents: the revised manuscript, the reply to the reviewer, where we really describe point by point what we have done and why. And then we need to write a cover letter for the editor, focused on the most important aspects. So those aspects that, according to what we have read from the reviewers, are those really, really key for publication. So now I have some examples of replies to the reviewers, but if you agree, I can stop here and see whether there are some questions right now, and then we can share some more hints in the time still available.
Yes. Thank you very much to Cristina Florio for interesting lecture. And I think that we can start just now with some question. I see in our team systems there are no question or comments. It means I can start with first question. Do you have experience with resubmission our new version of our paper? How many times is appropriate to send this new version of our article to another journal or to one editor?
Well, so you mean we have a paper? I'm not sure I got the question, so I try to repeat. We have a paper, we send it to a journal.
Yeah.
And we receive reject.
We receive reject and some comments. We can to improve our article, and we can send it, but the final results will be rejected. Okay. We try to send this paper after maybe some improving to another journal. It means my question is, how many times is appropriate to send to another journal?
Yeah, I know the situation pretty well. So, okay, we have many variables playing in such a decision. Okay. So there is no rule in the sense that we can make even 20 attempts if we want. But the point is, if the paper gets rejected once, it's okay, it's normal. Twice, still, it's normal. But after the 3rd or 4th time, honestly, I will start asking myself, really, what's wrong with that? So, again, it's a matter of choices, decisions, pressures that we have. What I try to do is to really ask myself if I assessed previous comments in an appropriate way. Because the first time is okay, but then when you receive comments, they should be important comments given the rejection. So once I have assessed these problems and still the paper is rejected, what I say normally is, okay, so this paper will never be published in a very good journal. So I try to go one step lower. So in Italy, we have this system A, B, C, D as a rank. Normally, I start with A journals, but I am aware that some pieces of research will never be published in A journals. Okay, but at least I receive harsh feedback to improve the paper. I will lose 4-6 months because of that, okay, but then I will try with another A journal. If I see that the paper is not going well, okay, then I reduce the paper, I reduce the journal expectation, let me say this. But we still have very good journals in B, C levels. Okay, so they are still demanding, but maybe a little bit less. Okay, because we have this other issue. Given that we deal in accounting, management areas, I don't know exactly which is yours, but issues which are current today are superseded tomorrow. So we need to publish pretty quickly. Otherwise, and again, this is an experience I had. Otherwise, the paper gets old, data gets old, and then it's very difficult to publish. We had a project started, it was my first one, the very first one, 2005. We were able to publish the paper in 2018. It was my first experience, so I made so many mistakes. I learned from those mistakes, okay? But,
Yes.
you know, it's a nightmare. In the end, I got the paper published in a B journal, so second level journal, which will probably be indicated as A in the future because it is a growing journal. And I was able to publish this paper with data from 2006 to 2008. Because in the end, after number of analysis, after you know, strict discussion with my co-authors, we were able to come up with a piece of evidence that the editor and reviewers considered relevant enough for the publication, even though data were old.
Thanks. And another question. Maybe that I have some recommendation from two reviewers. One recommend improve this area, and another say this area is okay. What can I do? Because there is a different approach for this.
The true issue here is if you intervened in the paper, then the reviewer who appreciated the previous version does not appreciate the second one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, however, I think that when a reviewer is critical, on a point, we need to try to satisfy him or her. Okay, of course, we need to say the other reviewer, even though, also without, saying, even though you were okay, but it seems that we provided more weight to the other one. But we can say we brought some revisions also to that section of the paper, because in order to comply with the other reviewers' comment or suggestion. So try always to be fair. But I believe it's a minor issue, the one of intervening in a section that for one reviewer was okay with the first version. The point is that when a reviewer is not okay with something you have done and you do not assess the point, that is the very critical part. Why? Because the reviewer can say, look, I provided some indications, the authors did not follow, so reject.
Yes, I received another question. First one is from Kateřina Křikalová. What are the criteria for dividing journal into categories and A up to D in Italy?
Well, basically, there are a number of steps. In the meanwhile, hello, Katerina. I'm happy that you joined me because we know each other in person, and it's a long time we can't meet. So first of all, journals are included in a list of scientific journals or non-scientific journals. So for sure, the categories are only for scientific journals. Then the aspects which are considered are, of course, the review process, single blind or double blind review process, the composition of the editorial board of the journal. So whether there are most academics or practitioners, where do academics come from? Because if the editorial board of a journal is made of just, let's say, Italian professors, then it's difficult. It gets a high rate because internationality is important. And then they consider the regularity of the issues published and how many papers are within each issue. And then the criteria are the impact factor, so 5 years impact factor, the H index. So to be a journal, you really must be top one, so top cited, top ranked. Also, given that we are in Italy, we observe also journals classification in other countries. So, for example, the ABDC list in Australia, a ranking in the UK. So we look at also the evaluation of the journal abroad.
Yes, maybe this classification is according quartile, because in Czech Republic we have classification about quartile according impact factor. But my another question, if do you use also article influence score for evaluation?
Not yet.
Not yet. It means we have last question from doctoral students. How to choose a good topic? Which one do you prefer, timelines or value? Now, for example, a lot of people are focusing on the economy after virus. So soon they were able to get a chance to publish. Some people study other unpopular topics that are hard to publish. Should we chase the trend?
Well, it is a very good question. Thanks, Lou. This is a never-ending issue in research. So, shall I go for value in the long term with all methodological aspects fixed perfectly with a huge sample, or shall I windsurf the moment? Okay, the wave. This really depends on how you are judged in your career. So the position you have right now and what will be the next step. So it's difficult to answer this question. Nowadays, we see lots of call for papers on the virus and economy after, during the virus, and so on. And there is very high competition. Okay, some colleagues of mine, they are guest editors of a special issue from AAAJ as a journal. Okay, and the issue is about the virus and, of course, implications in accounting and so on. They received like 80 papers, and they need to accept just 6 or 7 of them, so less than 10%. So it's true, there's a trend, but within that trend, there is high competition. On the other side, journals will continue publishing papers on other subjects. Okay. When you state unpopular topics, well, why should be a topic unpopular? So when we say popularity, I think that a good piece of research, which is really novel, is also to some extent unpopular. Because when a paper is popular, it's because it is in a field where many other scholars are focusing and are publishing on. Of course, unpopular or pretty new means that it is more difficult to sell the idea. And so you need to study, explain very well which is the idea, how it can advance knowledge, and so on. But I will never suggest to stop good, innovative research projects to windsurf the wave.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much for answering this question. I hope that cooperation between our faculty and your university will be in future continued. And just now, I think that we can finish our session, and we hope in better cooperation according maybe publication in future. Thank you very much to all audience.
Thanks to you. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for joining us. And of course, you can contact me for, I don't know, sharing experience or even for a quick advice on research. So you have my email address. It will be a pleasure to cooperate with you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.